Week 2 of Lock Talk. O'Kane and Joey back again. Thank you guys for tuning in, whether you're watching it on YouTube. We've also got it on Amazon Music, Stitcher, Spotify, and we're going to be on Twitch. We do have some exciting news that Joey's beautiful brain did think of earlier this week, so we are going to definitely talk about that at some point, probably not today. Joey, how are we feeling, brother? We are
good, man.
Cusp of
good. Yeah, we got to brainstorm that Twitch idea a little bit more, but I think we have something potentially special in the works. My gambling hiatus was really nice, but my guy O'Kane here, he's a good salesman, and he convinced me to take the first half under 18.5 points in this Pats-Texans preseason duel. So for all the people who say if you're betting on preseason football, you're a loser or degenerate or whatever, I disagree. I took a month off so I can do whatever the hell I want. And it feels good. I feel human again, man. It feels good to have like skin in the game. Win, lose, or draw. It'll add some excitement to the night, you know? But we already have some excitement here, man. We got a lot to talk about, which is cool. So
that we do. And also just a heads up, 15-yard sack on CJ Stroud. It's going to be third and very long.
Beautiful.
Texans, good start there. One thing you won't see this week that we kind of teased last week, Ben Carey and us, we did have a conversation earlier this week. However, somebody may have forgot to press record. We might have had some technical difficulties, but he did bring us to StreamYard. Ben said, hey, get off of Zoom. Zoom is terrible, and he's right. So StreamYard, shout out to them. Get this nice little backdrop here. It's going to be a lot easier for connectivity reasons, and that's a pick. CJ Stroud throws a pick, and that's going to be, oh boy.
That's not a good start.
Oh boy. Yep, that's a pick for CJ Stroud, number 2 draft pick.
It's not a pick six, though, is it?
Not a pick six. First and 10, 23-yard line, looks like, for the Patriots. Anyways, screwed up with Ben. We're going to get him back in 2 weeks or so, within the next 2 weeks, to talk AFC West. Regardless, big shout out to him for even coming back. He could have just told us to go fuck ourselves. I feel like I would have probably not been too happy, but he's a super cool guy, and he's got a lot of good takes about the AFC West. Today, we are talking AFC North and AFC South, a little bit of Pac-12, a little bit of ACC sprinkled in there, as well as we had first episode of Hard Knocks. So we'll go through that. But before we do, I want to talk the app quick. Lock Talk. Joey, we got live lines. Lines are live.
We do. I actually didn't even know until I read your text earlier saying we have live lines, and then I checked and saw. So shout out my partner for uploading the college week 0 lines and the NFL ones too. It's a beautiful sight to see. I'm sure we'll have some good insight coming in, flowing into the app soon. So it's cool. I was checking them out earlier. I was looking at the Notre Dame Navy game that's going to be played in Dublin. All the week 0 college football games and the NFL ones too. So I'm sure a lot of the lines will be changing, but it's still just fun to look at these lines a month out. A few weeks out from week 0, but a month and some change for NFL. So exciting stuff, man.
Very exciting. We are getting very close as we sit here in the second week of August. Let's hop into our AFC South. We're going to start stinky. I kind of mentioned it before to you. We're going to start stinky, a one that maybe not everybody's going to be interested in, and that's a sack on third down for the Texans. It's going to be a long field goal. I'm going to have a hard time doing this. Gambling is so back. All right, so let's talk Indianapolis Colts. We're talking win total at 6.5, about a minus $130. Divisional odds just over plus 500. Long shot Super Bowl odds over plus 12,000. We talked about the Colts' tumultuous offseason. One thing I don't think we touched on because we were too busy talking about Jonathan Taylor. The Colts had 2 guys get busted and for gambling, and then they got waived. It was the first wave of kind of these gambling-related suspensions, as we kind of talked about last week. We're going to see more of them roll in. But as far as the Colts, prop-wise, I had one. I'm going to let you go first. Is there anything in the Indianapolis Colts? Is there something, we kind of looked at their schedule a little bit. It's not, anytime you've got an AFC South team, it's hard to say that they've got a tough schedule, but they do avoid some teams. So what are your thoughts on the Colts initially?
Yeah, I mean, with the rookie quarterback, I like him a lot. I think he's really interesting, and he's gonna hopefully, for his sake, have a good long career. But you know, I don't think right away. I think it'll take him some time. So, if anything, it's that win total, as you said. You said 6.5, right?
Correct.
So, if anything, I might take a look at the under there, but they could surprise some people too. Again, it's a pretty weak division, so I don't think Houston's going to have a good season. I'm pretty low on Tennessee, so the Colts can make some noise, for their sake. Hopefully, they figure out this whole JT situation, but they have a pretty exciting young team, and maybe they can get over the hump right away with Richardson, and shock some people. So
It would definitely be shocking. One of the lower totals in the league as far as win totals go. I do have a prop that I really like. Richardson, his total passing yards number. Now, this is granted Irsay, who we're going to talk about in a second. He's a little bit of a loose cannon. Wouldn't be super surprised if the rookie has a couple weeks. He's not so great. We see Gardner Minshew get in the game. He feels like a guy that loves Gardner Minshew and looks at him like a toy.
Yeah.
Richardson at 24.75. Joey, I watched Matt Ryan with his dead ass arm last year throw for 250 yards a game with arguably the best running back in the NFL.
Yeah.
Definitely, if Richardson is getting the reps, it's going to be one of my favorite bets. I'm probably going to be putting that in as we get closer. I want to see, is he going to distance himself? Because even with some, news we're getting, the odds makers are pretty confident in their lines. We haven't seen as much as far as totals move, but he's a guy, if we're getting closer to the season, and he's no doubt, I'm definitely going to be looking at his total. Now, let's talk Jim Irsay real quick. Is he a crazy old man or a philosophical genius? Because the NFL does move on without Jonathan Taylor, and the Colts are going to owe him a ton of money. I think they wanted like $16 to $18 million a year. But what do we think? Is he somebody that should probably just stay off Twitter?
Yeah, man, he's done a lot of stuff, I think, in his lifetime. Let's just put it that way. So his tweets are so fucking weird, man. But yeah, they had a really exciting offseason until this whole thing went down. Obviously the Richardson pick was huge. I like Michael Pittman a lot, a receiver. Like, they have a cool young team, as I was just saying. But with those distractions, that's a lot.
That is a lot
for them to get over. So I don't know. I think that's gonna be distracting for their whole team. I think the reports I see on Twitter right now about Richardson are, he's looking really good. He's launching the ball. He's a good leader, all that. But I'm seeing the same thing with like CJ Stroud, and he's throwing picks on the first drive of the first preseason game. So, it's a whole nother ball game come early September. So I'm going in with low expectations for the Colts for Richardson to start, but I think I do like him long term. I do think, he does have that Josh Allen, Cam Newton kind of hybrid to him, and I just don't think right away it's gonna fall into place for them, especially with the offseason news as of late. So.
Well, and it's not like we watched him absolutely tear it up in college either.
Exactly.
You and I were just talking about Cam Newton before we got on here, and Cam was incredible, arguably one of the best college football players ever. Anthony Richardson, although an athletic freak, just wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how the Colts go. The next team I want to talk about, the Tennessee Titans, getting a brand new stadium. If you haven't seen that yet, go look at that on Twitter. It is sick. If anybody's been downtown Nashville, that stadium's a little bit of an eyesore, so the new one will be cool.
Yeah. Broadway's going to be even more bussin'.
How can it be more? So it's crazy down there. 23 projected win totals for the Tennessee Titans, 7.5, just a little bit better than the Colts. That's $1.39. Divisional odds just over plus 300. Super Bowl plus 10,000. My number one thing in their offseason, it's hard to claim that things are kosher when you draft a quarterback in the second round after taking one last year in the third round and signing a guy to a major deal the year before that. Yes, you bring in DeAndre Hopkins. To me, I don't like this team. And in talking about bets with them, I don't think highly of them. I think you're getting value with the projected win total. They were 7-10 last year. It didn't feel like that was a fluky 7-10, that they were better than their record. I would argue that they looked worse than their record. They couldn't move the ball. I personally think that you've got some value there, especially with the amount of juice on over 7.5. The under should be fantastic as far as what's available.
Yeah, I'm really low on the Titans this year. I was kind of low on them last year. I thought the AJ Brown trade fucked them, and I think they really should have paid him as he was entering his prime and was clearly a proven elite receiver, in my opinion. But when they traded him away and then they drafted, who was it, Burks from Arkansas? I don't know. It kind of seemed like they were going in this different direction. They had been top of that division for a few years. I think Vrabel's a great coach, and Tannehill was getting the job done. But with, they took Willis and then Levis. So what does that say about their confidence in Tannehill? Derrick Henry, I think, is going in his age 29 or 30 season. The wheels are going to fall off at some point. I know he's a beast, but
I think so.
Hopkins' wheels are going to fall off there too. And Tennessee is where receivers go to die, as you saw with Randy Moss, Andre Johnson, and Julio, I think, was the most recent one. So is Hopkins going to return to his prime ways? Doubtful. He can definitely contribute, but, I don't think this team is that dynamic. I think they're one of the least interesting teams in the entire league. And, I think it's we'll segue into the Jaguars for a second or in a bit, but I think this division is the Jaguars for the next few years, maybe the foreseeable future. But Tennessee, I think, is going to take a back seat until that new stadium is built, and they figure out who the hell is going to throw them, who's going to throw the ball for them. So, that's my take on Tennessee.
I never thought of that. It's an interesting. Oh no, is that a turnover for Stroud? Nope, not a fumble. That would have been really funny.
Yeah.
But the way you just talked about that, Tennessee, they aren't building for today. They are building for 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And if you roll the dice on multiple quarterbacks, although it is ballsy, and I wouldn't do it personally, it is a move to try to. You're like, hey, we're gonna strike with somebody. Obviously, Tannehill was overpaid, but he was kind of market value for the guy at the time because your team was a lot better because Derrick Henry was younger. You had the offensive line that you don't have anymore, and you had a good defense. But, yeah, I agree. The Titans, not very high on them. You talked about the Jaguars a little bit. I think you and I are both very similar on the Jags. Projected win total, 9.5, Joey. Divisional odds, -160, and Super Bowl odds, plus 3,700. I love the Jags this year. I think that the Jags are one of the best teams, and I'm going to let you go off on a second because I want to find the bet that I love. You go ahead. Jags.
Yeah, I'm really high on the Jags. Part of it is because AFC South sucks, and it's probably the worst division in the league. Another reason is just because I think they're it's their time. I think it's Trevor's time to fully break out. I think, second year under Doug Peterson, who's a really good coach, and I don't think he gets that credit from some people.
Completely forget that.
Yeah, this guy beat Tom Brady with Nick Foles. So
he did do that.
Yeah. So he's proven. Trevor Lawrence has already proved that he's their guy, but I think he takes that step forward. ETN, Calvin Ridley, Kirk. Even guys like Evan Engram, which pains me to say that, but shit. Their defense is a little suspect, I think, at some of the positions, but I think they're a young and just damn good team. I think not only will they win the division, I think they'll be at least a 10-win team. So I do like that 9.5 a lot, the over. And you look at their schedule, there are definitely 10 winnable games at least. I don't think they're a contender in the AFC just yet because the AFC is so damn good, between Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and then, you might have someone like Chargers or I'm blanking on the team. Baltimore, someone else, come in. I think Jacksonville will win the division. I think they will advance to at least the wild card round or the divisional round again, like they did this past year. I'm actually very excited. I think they're a really fun team on paper, but I think they're going to be even more fun to watch. So, the little I watched them last season, or not little, I watched them a decent amount. They were really exciting. So I think getting Calvin Ridley and having one more year with a lot of those guys and under Doug Peterson is, the future's pretty bright for them.
I think the one word that comes to mind with the Jags and with Doug Peterson teams, it's they're well ran, they're clean, they're not gonna. It's completely the opposite of what they had with Urban Meyer. It's
exactly
chaos.
Exactly.
It's very well done. It's very just a smart coach that's done it before. So I said I wanted to find a bet, and I looked this up. Oh man, probably in late June, early July. So I'm sure it's still out there, and the odds probably have only gotten better because the Jags win total back then actually was minus $1.50. So they're actually getting play on the opposite side, which is interesting.
All right. Okay.
But my bet here, plus 1,500, Jags, most wins in the NFL. We talked about a very, very, very favorable schedule.
Yeah. Looking up their schedule, there's a lot of winnable games.
And they were 13 to 14 wins in my eyes. It was
I see it too. I'm definitely eyeing that 9.5. I know when we had Ben Carey on, before you forgot to press record, that is, Ben was talking about another prop, but he was talking about the alt win total. So, if whatever book you guys who are listening to, or whatever book you guys are using, and you're seeing some alt win totals, that might be worth monitoring for Jacksonville, because looking at their schedule, I think they're at least a 10-win team. I think they can go 11-6, 12-5. I think they're definitely in that range, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go even better. I'm that high on them. So the 9.5, I'm definitely eyeing, and we'll continue to monitor for the next few weeks. I did see Trevor Lawrence to lead the league in passing at plus 1440.
You don't.
Interesting. I really think he takes that leap this year. It's a passing league too. I mean, they're going to run the ball with ETN, but he's also going to be slinging at Trevor Lawrence. So they got a great group of receivers and tight ends. So he's going to be spreading the ball out. He's going to be spreading the love. Look, to put like $50, $20, whatever. We don't unit shame here, but something small, maybe it's $5, whatever, on Trevor Lawrence plus 1440 to lead the league in passing. I might just do that.
I don't hate it at all. Hate it at all. I did pull up the alternate win totals if you want to hear them.
Definitely.
Cool. So if you like the Jags, we kind of talked about it already. 9.5 is already available. You can get 10.5 plus 155, 11.5 plus 230, 12.5 plus 420, 13.5 is plus 750.
All right.
So if you like the Jags, you could theoretically ladder the Jags. I don't think I would do that. I would probably just load up on the 9.5. It's probably one of my favorite futures that I see on the board thus far. And I've pretty much looked at everything, and that's a number that stands out to me. It's one that I think is a podcast that we'll put our name behind. So yeah, definitely with you on that one with the Jags. Anything else about Jacksonville before we move along?
Anything else? I'm really confident on them. So this is a Jags podcast. So hopefully we circle back in like December, and there we go.
There they are, baby.
All right.
I'm ready
to
off again.
Hopefully in like December they clinched, and maybe they clinch a first round bye. Who knows? But AFC is really strong. If the AFC didn't have so many other stellar teams, I'd be even more high on them, because the AFC South, I'm not expecting much from them. I don't think many people are as a whole. So, high on the Jags, man. That's an 11-win team. 11-6.
11-6. I can live with 11-6. I can live with 12-4. Yeah. No,
Yeah, the math throws me
12 and
off now.
5, 12 and
I
5.
still say,
It's been a year and I still don't
yeah,
know.
I'm starting to get used to it a little bit more, but yeah, that's why I keep saying, oh, that's a 10-win team. That's an
Yeah, it's a
11-win team. I'm
10-win
not
team.
even
Now a 10
worried about doing the
it's
math.
maybe wild card depending on the season. But yeah, we've got one more team to talk about in the AFC South. It's the team that I'm watching right now on TV, the Houston Texans.
Yes, sir.
6.5 wins, Joey, for plus chicken for the team that had the number 2 pick in the draft and the number 3 pick. Divisional odds plus 940, Super Bowl odds plus 24,000. I'm a big fan of what they did in the offseason. First, you hired D'Amico Ryans, franchise legend, highly touted coaching prospect,
Yep.
waiting for the right spot. Next, you draft your franchise quarterback in Stroud, future your defense, Will Anderson. After the draft, lock down Stroud's backside. You strap Laramie Tunsil with the highest paid contract in football for a tackle. You got him for a half decade. Last, you go get some vets. Robert Woods, Sheldon Rankins, Dalton Schultz, Devin Singletary.
Yeah.
Is it gonna work? I don't know. I mean, it's gonna take a lot, but they're in the right division.
Definitely.
Where if you can scrap together some wins, you could back your way into at least the 2 spot in a division with a 7 to 8 wins. So it'll be interesting. I don't really have any props, but the win total in a really bad division at plus money, it may be something that's worth it. I just won't be caught dead betting the Texans. Yeah, I'll be honest. Unless
I can agree with you there.
overpass.
Yeah, I agree. I think everything you said, like in terms of their offseason, is true. From a betting perspective, frankly haven't looked at shit, but I do think they're starting to put the pieces around Stroud that to put him in the best position to succeed. But first year head coach, who I think is great, but it's going to be tough for them to make any real noise in year one. But they've had so many shitty years that, like, for their fans' sake, I just hope they're exciting and there's promise there. Like, there's been a lot of really, outside of Watson, I don't think they've had a serviceable quarterback.
Well, and for
ever.
everything,
Matt Shaw maybe, but
that was good. I mean, it's probably, we'll get to him in a second, but it's safe to say he tarnished anything that he ever had for their fans. So
yeah,
I have
exactly.
a buddy of mine, Reed. Shout out Reed. I think you actually do listen to this. Maybe you don't. Whatever. He is a Texan fan, and I see I mean, it's not even a roller coaster. Roller coaster don't go like this. Roller coaster at least goes like this sometimes, but their roller coaster goes like that.
Right.
It's not good. Houston, not a great situation, but in my opinion, it is looking up. So we're going to move on, talk a little AFC North, a little bit of a palate cleanser, Joey. This is a much, much better division. We have one division where probably one team that can make the playoffs. Let's talk about a division that could arguably, all 4 of those teams, you can make an argument to get into the playoffs. So I want to start, though, in Baltimore. Baltimore, 9.5 win total. Very, very low in my opinion, but minus 172. Joey, we talked about it with Ben. Hanging up that much juice in a season future is tough. Divisional odds are plus 210. They are right behind Cincinnati. Super Bowl plus 2,100. Feels kind of low, actually, for being what it is.
Right.
But offseason wise, Lamar gets the bag. They get OBJ. They get some defensive help. But really, this has to be a Lamar breakout year. If it's not, then I'm probably going to give up on him because he's got his guys. They go get OBJ. They have Rashad Bateman. He's got Mark Andrews. There are no more excuses for number 8. And for that, and if you want to bet on him, he's only ever thrown for 3,100 yards. If you want him to throw for 4,000 yards, you get that sucker at plus 400. 4-1 if you think he can get to the 4,000, which doesn't feel like a lot with Lamar. I was like, man, that feels really low. Dude, he just does not throw for the yardage. Now, with receivers, what do you think of this team, Joey? Is this a team that'll make that next step and win a playoff game or two?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's between them and Cincy right now. We'll get to the other teams after, but I think pretty good offseason for Baltimore. I always rooted, for OBJ, whatever, but He's coming off a couple serious injuries. He's entering, I think, age 31 or 32 season. But for him to at least go in and, be a playmaker, if that's all they get out of him, not talking 1,000+ yards, crazy touchdown catches, whatever. But if he could be a contributor and they grow guys like Zay Flowers, they keep using Andrews, J.K. Dobbins is healthy, Lamar stays healthy and balls out. Lamar is also paid. So he started last season great, too. I remember.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Very much an MVP candidate.
If he stays healthy, that defense is very solid. I haven't been giving defenses in general enough love on this stream yet, but
true.
Baltimore's defense is very solid. So obviously the coach has been around for a while. Harbaugh knows what he's doing. Pretty quiet offseason for them. I think Cincinnati's taking a lot of the attention, but Baltimore to win that division is something, that's interesting. I don't think I'm going to take anything there, but I think their offense is really exciting. I think their defense is very good. So they have all the pieces. There's no excuses. So that's the thing.
Oh, I just lost Joey completely. Well, Joey's gone. I'm going to take a second to talk about Betalytics. Yeah, that's a pretty good turnaround when Joey's out of here. We'll get him back in a second. But Betalytics we're going to talk about during the season. Betalytics uses a model. They use AI. They use all the computer nerdy shit to project NFL stats, NBA stats, MLB. I used them a lot during the NBA. They were fantastic. We'll be working again with them this fall. Definitely I'll have something to go with that. And to talk a little bit more about the Ravens and how I feel about Lamar Jackson. He's one of those guys that has always felt like he's that one step away. He really is one step away. And if he can do it, this is the year. This is the year. There's no excuse. He's got to be back. Speaking of got to be back, I don't know where the hell Joey went. But we'll get him back in a second. I'm going to talk Cleveland Browns while we miss him. So the Cleveland Browns have a projected win total 9.5 at +108. Divisional odds 4-1. Super Bowl odds 31-1. Looking at an offseason for Cleveland. It was a defensive-minded offseason. They committed just under $100 million to 3 guys. Safety Juan Thornhill, defensive end Obo Okoronkwo, and I probably killed that name, to be honest. And defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson. He got a nasty contract, 1 year, $12 million. Yuck. On the other side of the ball, they do get Elijah Moore, as the Browns sent over a second rounder in exchange for the Jets, third-year receiver, and a third-round pick. He's going to be pretty good. Now, I'm a guy that bet the Browns probably more than anybody that's not a Browns fan. The reason I did that was Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is unfortunately no longer with us in the sense of Cleveland. He is in Washington. He didn't die. But back in Cleveland, there was a second player that kind of popped up for me late in the season. David Njoku, the tight end, looking at his yardage total, 525.5 receiving yards projected. He had 628 in 14 games with mostly Jacoby. In Watson's start, there he is. There he is, my boy.
Man.
I just moved on to the Browns and just kept it moving.
All right. That's cool. Wi-Fi issues. Props. So, yeah, that's on me. But it's cool. I'm back. I'm here to talk about the Browns.
Perfect.
I don't have much to say about the Browns, man.
That's fine. That's fair. I'm just talking David Njoku. Kind of mentioned it earlier to you. Over 5.5 receiving yards. Like I was mentioning, 628 yards in 14 games with mostly Jacoby Brissett. In Watson starts, averaged 33 yards per game. And at that average, he clears it in just over 15 games. So he's a guy that if he stays healthy, I really like his over in receiving yards. The one question I did have in Cleveland, and I said we would touch on it, and again, I'm happy you got back, so I didn't have to touch on it solo. Are Browns fans a little too quick to forget about how creepy Deshaun Watson actually is? Guys, I think this was brushed over.
Absolutely. We don't have to talk about this much, but it's it's weird, man. It's weird. Even like, I don't know. But if we're just talking football, that guy can play.
Can really play.
I really did not watch him last season when he got back. I think they were already like kind of out of contention a little bit, or
they
so.
stopped playing their games for the most part. And if you were watching Red Zone when he got back, they weren't on or featured almost at all because he didn't play that well. I'll say it. He just did not play that great. They are saying that he's slinging it better in practice. So that's enough about the Cleveland Browns. Let's talk about some more fun teams. We got two more in the AFC North. First, the Pittsburgh Steelers, 8.5 wins projected. One that I thought was a little surprising. Get it at $1.50 minus money. Divisional odds 470 and Super Bowl odds 60-1. Probably the maybe last year would have been a little bit further out odds, but in our lifetime, the Steelers have always been in it. Off-season wise, you get Joey Porter Jr. as a no-brainer at the top of the second round.
Yes,
you just basically go defense. Patrick Peterson, Larry Ogunjobi, Cole Holcomb. Offensively, they're going to stay the same for better or for worse. If you watched them last year, not very fun, kind of an anemic offense. Looking at Steelers props, I had one that stuck off the page to me that I'm going to highlight. George Pickens. As much fun as he is on Twitter and as much fun as all of the antics stuff and memes, I'm just not that high on the guy. He's a big-time boom bust. I got under 775.5 receiving yards.
Damn. Okay.
He was over that last year. He had 800 yards last year. I don't think it's going to get any better for him. I do think that, and in the splits too, when Trubisky was in versus Kenny Pickett, Trubisky targeted him way more. Kenny and him just didn't really click. I think towards the end of the year, they had a couple of games around 60, 70 yards. But for the most part, I'm not a huge Pickens fan. And he's also like the new Michael Irvin. The guy pushes off in every single clip that I see.
That's the whole thing on Twitter. That's
I
the Twitter
don't
narrative.
want to comment on his off-the-field issues, but when you're watching a shiesty with a white T-shirt for the NFL draft, that's a hell of a look. But yeah, that's where I'm thinking. What are your thoughts on the Steel City?
Right. I keep seeing all the videos of him, and he's definitely talented. But I think what people are forgetting when it comes to him, and maybe this whole, part of the analysis when like looking at his prop, they signed Allen Robinson. They still have Deontay Johnson, who's been a little quiet, but he's excellent. They're hopefully going to use Najee Harris more because he can be a superstar in the league.
Need that.
Pat Freiermuth is a great tight end. They have the weapons. They have other weapons outside of Pickens, and Pickens is kind of taking all the attention when it, just regarding Twitter and social media. It's all these highlights of Pickens, but he's not their only guy on offense. And as you said, he and Pickett didn't really have the good chemistry last year. So that I think makes a little sense when looking at the 775, if that's what the number is, because Allen Robinson's been in the league a while. He's going to get his looks, maybe. Freiermuth, they're going to feed. Same with Deontay Johnson. So, but Kenny Pickett could also not be good, and he can just kind of stay the same or get worse. So
he can turtle. It's hard to say. A lot of quarterbacks getting into their second season here. I don't know who makes the jump, who falls behind. There's so many young quarterbacks in the league right now. I think Rodgers was like by far the oldest. They posted something about the age.
Sure, yeah.
This by like 3 years. Matt Stafford's like 36, 37, but it's a young man's league. And
yeah, definitely.
They're rolling the dice with their youngin. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know. What do you think about Kenny Pickett? I mean, is Kenny Pickett in your eyes? Is he the guy? I mean, I watched him a little bit in college. He was okay in the cool fake slide against Wake Forest in the game that I bet Wake Forest. I'll never forget that. I bet way too much.
That was a fun one. That was a fun one.
Wild game. But
yeah.
What are your thoughts on Pickett?
I'm looking forward to watching him again. I mean, seeing what he can do under Tomlin too. If he's going to take that next step, I think that's what really all Steelers fans are going to be watching too. How is he going to do? I think them as a team, they have a fine team. I think it's, last year how they kind of used Najee at first. That was just a little weird to see that. Like why you drafted the guy in the first round? Why aren't you using him? Or is he just not that good? I thought he was, worthy of a first round pick. So it's crazy. They're interesting in that way because they have all the pieces. I think so much of it, will fall on Kenny Pickett's improvement this year, or if maybe he doesn't improve. So, as an outsider, I think they're one of the more interesting. Like they're more interesting than Cleveland is to me for the AFC North, because I think you have Cincy, you have Baltimore. They're both playoff teams. Can the Steelers, can they sneak in with a wild card? Can they? Because
Why
look
not?
at their defense. They have some of two of the better defenders in the entire league. If everyone's healthy, this could be a pretty good team.
They're a better version than the Jets were last year. They were the Jets last year, except they were winning games because they were Kenny Pickett was just a little bit better at quarterback than Zach Wilson was or Mike White was. I do like it. Like you said, they're way more interesting than the Browns, and that might be a little biased because neither of us are a big fan of that team. But we're looking at the Steelers, and they just stay competitive. And the one thing you did mention too, Tomlin. So where does Tomlin rank in coaches of this era? Because he seems to be, no chance of a hot seat. They let him completely rebuild it on his own. Pittsburgh doesn't really go different ways with coaching unless things get really bad. Is Tomlin, I don't know, second, third best coach in our kind of generation here in the 2000s and, late 90s?
I'd definitely rank him top 5. I'm not trying to, do any tiers or rankings right now, but I would put him in the conversation, right after. I think everyone would go Belichick 1 just because everything he's done. But who would you look at right behind him? Like him, Andy Reid, Andy Reid popped up. But
Reid is the one that you'd probably argue against him because they both have 2. And
right.
This Reid has done it. What have you done for me lately? But Reid also did it with Patrick Mahomes versus Tomlin's done it with Roethlisberger, a little bit different. So am I misspeaking? Or does Tomlin have 2? Tomlin's got 1. Tomlin only has 1, right?
I think Cowher
got the first in 06. Yeah, you're right. Cowher got the first one in 06. So really, Tomlin only got 1. You got to put Andy Reid second. But Tomlin, like I said, maybe third. It'll be interesting to see how the Steelers move. And he's a young guy.
Yeah.
Here, Siri, how old is Mike Tomlin? Siri says 51, dude. He could coach for another 15 years. Easy. He could do all of Kenny Pickett's career, literally the whole thing, and then he's got Big Ben for 90% of Big Ben's career, and you get Kenny Pickett. Granted, we might be giving Kenny Pickett a little too much credit there to think that he's going to play that long. But regardless, definitely interesting that we have the Steelers once again competitive, at least in Vegas' eyes. We will see how it goes.
Definitely. Yeah, I think with Tomlin as the coach, they're going to be competitive. So I don't know if you have that kind of sounded pretty stupid, but with their roster, with the second-year quarterback, and as long as Tomlin's a coach, they're going to be competitive. I think they'll finish above or ahead of Cleveland. I don't have their win total up right now, but that I think is something worth taking a look at because it might be pretty low. I don't think they're getting much respect. So
8.5.
8.5. All right, that's pretty interesting.
You're getting $1.50 for it, so there's a lot of Steeler love, and this is the funny thing too. I read a correlation. So a lot of these teams, so like the Steelers, are getting -150 on their win total. Gambling is legal in Ohio.
Yeah,
these or. Well,
it is now,
Pennsylvania, but a lot of Ohio fans are Pittsburgh. You get what
I'm saying? It's pretty close to the border there.
Well, no, and Pittsburgh's definitely legal because they've got rivers. So yeah, Pennsylvania is 100% in.
Pennsylvania's been legal, yep.
Yeah, it all ties in, and some guy was putting it all together on Twitter.
There aren't many states that aren't legal now, but when you're in one and it's not legal, it's like, oh shit, what am I gonna do?
No kidding. Yeah, what are we doing? We're giving it all to the Indian tribes. That's what we're doing right now. So we can only bet at 3 locations. Regardless, let's talk Bengals. The Bengals are projected division winners +150 for divisional odds. just under plus 1,000 for Super Bowl. We're looking at a win total 11.5, one of the heftiest win totals in the league, plus 127. So you could probably find an alt line a little bit. Maybe you could find an alt line around minus 180. They're going to kill you with the VIG on that. But regardless, let's talk Cincy offseason wise. Orlando Brown signing, highest signing bonus. Dude got a $31 million bag. Great to see an offensive lineman get paid. Outside of that, they lost a lot of guys. Lost Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Hayden Hurst, Eli Apple, Samaje Perine, all gone. I have a Bengals bet. I like the Bengals to have the most points scored in the league at plus 850. They were 8th last year in what you would probably call a disappointing offensive season. What are your thoughts on the Cincinnati Bengals there, Joey?
Even with the losses to the defense, I don't think they've changed a whole lot. And, they're so fun. They're so good.
Yes.
And I haven't heard much on the whole Joe Burrow calf thing. I think that's pretty minor. But right before that happened, I was thinking, or I was taking a look at MVP futures and thinking, I think this is the season he wins it, or he's runner up as long as he's healthy. I think he's going to be this is the year he cements himself as the guy right behind Mahomes. I know I was talking about Trevor Lawrence before. I think Trevor Lawrence takes a big step, and then right behind Mahomes, everyone will be talking about Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, maybe Lamar, maybe Daniel Jones, hopefully.
Oh, wishful thinking.
But
we'll get there.
Joe Burrow, MVP, it just sounds right. They have everything they need for that to happen. That's a bet I'm going to look at. I'm not saying I'm taking that, but definitely something that's pretty interesting. Herbert's another guy I'll throw out there too. I think he'll take that next step too. But Mahomes is up here. All those other guys are right there, and then they want that title for best quarterback. And what other way to do that than to win MVP? So Joey B, MVP. Has a nice ring to it.
Joey B, MVP.
I'll get the odds up here. I don't love that win total. I think anything over 10, my mind is just going to go.
It's asking a lot.
To be interested in it.
Playing a lot on injuries. There's a lot of variables. Well, you're looking that up. I actually pulled it up already. I like Cincinnati 10-1 to win the Super Bowl. I don't think it's going to get any better. So they start off Cleveland, Baltimore, the Rams, and Tennessee, and Arizona. So, I mean, you're really looking at probably a 4-1, maybe 5-0 start. And then you get Seattle in the bye. So you're probably 5-1, 4-2 at the absolute worst, and 6-0 at the absolute best going into their bye week. So it's a team that I don't think I'd get a better price on. And like you said, Burrow's kind of that guy that I'm thinking also takes the leap. They had him next to Mahomes the year that he went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Takes that step back. Everybody gets so excited. Shiny little thing over here. Jalen Hurts going crazy. Super Bowl run. You got to remember Joe Cool's right there. This is a guy that has beat Mahomes multiple times. Has beat him in the playoffs. He's one of the only guys that have beat Mahomes in the playoffs. So he definitely, to me, the Bengals pose the number one threat to the Chiefs in the AFC. I don't really think it's that close as much as the Bills, and we'll talk about the Bills here in a few weeks. But the Bengals, as fun as they are, they're a team that's really well coached. I think Zach Taylor is probably an underrated coach. He caught a lot of shit early the first year that he was there. He has smoothed anything over, man. It really does feel like a really good machine that they have cooking. I'm a big fan. It's going to probably, and I haven't put it in officially yet, I want to see if I can find better odds. But, turnover. That drives over. Still 3-0, by the way. 8.5 minutes to go in the half. Boys are looking good. But we're talking about the Bengals. It is probably going to be my Super Bowl team. I can't look you guys in the face and say I'm going to bet the Packers to win the Super Bowl because it's just not. So okay. I would say the Bengals are probably my team. Is it a team that once we get there, I'm going to be super proud just holding a 10-1 ticket? It'll feel good at the time. There's going to be other larger wagers, but I do like Burrow to MVP. Did you pull up what those odds are at all?
So I'm trying to look at it on DraftKings right now. I'm not seeing it, but I will get there. Um, live end game.
Got it.
No, but I think
Burrow
Mahomes is
plus
probably the favorite,
plus
is my guess.
700, tied with Josh Allen for second. Mahomes plus 600, Herbert plus 900. So, I mean, Vegas likes it right there. You can get Burrow at plus 700 to be the MVP. Probably just going off of how the MVP is selected, percentage wise, you probably have a better percentage or expected value, as the gambling community wants you to say, expected value on Burrow being a quarterback, having larger margin of error versus losing one game and you don't get to the Super Bowl. He could have a bad game and still be MVP.
Yeah.
Actually, now that you're now, you've changed my mind a little bit. I'm going to think more about Burrow at plus 700. It feels it's a slight discount. It's not like the Super Bowl is a super big long shot. I think I'm with you.
Yeah, it caught my eye, and this future in general did, because I'm seeing Burrow plus 750 and Mahomes is the favorite at plus 700. So I just think similar to like a league leader type prop where all the odds are going to be plus money, probably. I don't think anyone's going to be favorite of MVP or something before the season, right? Like that's just kind of crazy. But even we gave Burrow his love, we gave Trevor Lawrence his love. We won't talk outside of AFC North because I know that's what we're talking about now. But these are just futures in general that they're catching my eye. They're interesting. Again, I wouldn't put anything huge on them, but maybe throw like $20 on Joe Burrow to get it done and win MVP and not worry about it a whole lot or something. Let it sit over the season. Who knows?
There will be nothing better. I promise. There will be nothing better than the Saturday night before the Super Bowl, and you got live tickets for the award show. Like you've got live bet slips going. Like that would be pretty fun because Super Bowl weekend, usually that Saturday, I think there's usually UFC fights because I've been at the sports book for the Super Bowl the last few years. Usually that Saturday, they cut college basketball pretty early. They'll have like one or two late nights.
Right.
So I don't hate getting some. Maybe we got to put together a squad ride for a futures card. That might be.
Yeah, and I'm sounding like pretty degenerate by saying throw a couple small bets on NFL MVP futures, but it's something I've never done, and just looking at it, it's I wouldn't be opposed to placing a bet or two here. So
I don't hate it at all. I don't hate it at all.
It's it's a confidence thing. Like I think I don't know. We'll move on because I don't want to get too into it because then it's just going to suck us in and we'll be talking about it for a while. So
and we will have one last our last episode before the season. We'll go through our full list of what props we're actually betting. So we'll have a running list, and maybe we'll do a little competition to see how that ends up. We're gonna audible a little bit. Not going to spend a ton of time on college football. Like Joey said, there's so many names. I just want to run through. So ACC and Pac-12. I'm going to run through their 22s. I literally wrote a paragraph about each that I think sums up each conference pretty good. And then I'm just going to talk future outlooks because we have had some pretty interesting developments here in the last few weeks. And then we'll just touch on a few of the top teams with some of the Heisman candidates. We'll leave some of the lower level teams to some of the experts that want to dive into the Boston colleges of the world and Virginias of the world. But you guys can have that. There are plenty of podcasts for that. This is not one of them. Joey, I want to start in the ACC, brother. Looking at 22, Clemson cruises 8-0 in conference. Florida State, they win 10 games for the first time since 16. Miami struggled. Duke was great. Wake was disappointing. Conference Player of the Year, we talked about him, and we're going to talk about him here in a second. Drake May is back for North Carolina. 23 outlook. For the first time since 2005, we've got no divisions. With realignment coming, not super surprising. Speaking of which, we are seeing moves from probably Florida State or Clemson or both. They have to submit that by August 15th. So we are going to see that probably by this time next week. we'll know what their future looks like. But for now, talk about the year in front of us. Joey, I mentioned Florida State, and we kind of talked about Jordan Travis, who is plus 1,200 to win the Heisman. This is probably the most hyped team, maybe not in college football, but it's got to be up there. Have you really checked in on Florida State? Have you watched Jordan Travis play at all?
I didn't watch him much last year, but seeing his odds pretty high for Heisman is that's pretty cool. I mean, to see them back, all the hype, as you just said, surrounding them. I think college football is a better place when Florida State is a good squad. So there's a lot of hype around them, and I'm excited to watch them a little bit more this year for sure. But right now, off the top of my head, I can't talk about that much because I really didn't watch them much last year. Haven't been following them, but they fell ACC. I love to watch. So forever. Again, those noon. Florida State will probably get their primetime games. I haven't looked at their schedule, but those 12 o'clock Eastern time games on Saturday, the ACC ones, they're fun. They're fun games to bet. I like,
your first 11 o'clock first usually is the ACC or the Big Ten. And I hope now that the Big Ten is switching over, I really hope we don't lose a lot of our 11 o'clock games. There's been talks that the Big Ten is going to move a lot to prime time, which Big Ten under the lights, it doesn't slap the same as Northwestern on an 11 o'clock Dewey, Saturday morning in Evanston, but
it doesn't.
It really doesn't. So I do want to talk a little bit. We don't have a whole lot because I don't think much of this Clemson team. They got a 10-win total ACC title. They're plus 145. Their quarterback, who we haven't seen play almost at all, Case Klubnik, he's going to take over for Young Laley. He's fifth in the Heisman odds. That's why we talked about this. Heisman odds is like betting golf. I mean, you really have no clue. And I talked about a strategy, maybe better take 10 long shots at $10 a piece, because when you got a kid that's barely played, who's got maybe 100 snaps, not even. I don't know how you can price him at plus 1,400, but it is Clemson. One person I did want to mention, that a name that you will probably very much appreciate. Their defense is led by Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
I saw that.
I
saw that.
That is so awesome.
I assumed right away that it was his son, Jeremiah Trotter Sr., obviously. I Googled it anyway, but when I saw the name, I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. So very cool. Interesting team to see them, to see how they're going to do after DJ leaves, maybe we'll talk about DJ a little bit, but he's another pretty interesting player,
just
transferring to Oregon State.
First NIL player with the Dr. Pepper deal. Remember that?
Oh, is that so? Okay.
He was the first NIL player, and now he's got to transfer to, and we'll wait. We'll talk about him because I do have an opinion on him. One guy that I do have an opinion on even more is Drake May.
Okay.
Now he's, for those of you that don't know, North Carolina quarterback, player of the year last year in the ACC. A simple-minded bettor would see Drake May outside of the top 10 for Heisman odds at plus 1,400 and think, that's juicy. But before you do that, he is not that guy. In 2022, Tar Heels start 9-1, just firing. You've got Phil Longo. Great. Shout out Phil Longo. He's now in Madison. Going to be loving him. The team was doing awesome. They came off an upset victory at Wake Forest. They get Georgia Tech at home in mid-November, and they lose. And then the next week, they lose to NC State. And then Clemson embarrasses you 39-10 in the ACC title, and you wrap up with a Holiday Bowl loss to Oregon. To put it bluntly, they sucked, and I point all fingers at Drake May. After 10 straight weeks passing north of 280 yards, he went on to have games of 202, 233, 268, 206 down the stretch. Threw one touchdown and 4 picks before a 3-touchdown performance in the bowl game. He's going to be without offensive coordinator Phil Longo. He's going to be without his top 2 receivers from a year ago. This is a flash in the pan team. I told you, Joey, I had to get my rant off because this kid is getting a lot of hype. We talk about Caleb Williams. We'll talk about him in a second. They are going to compare these two together. They are not the same quarterback. Caleb Williams, in my opinion, is leaps and bounds ahead of Drake May. Drake May, to me, was a flash in the pan.
All right. Well, TBD how he does this season, but
Yeah, right.
there was
All
a lot
that,
of hype
gonna,
around
win a
him.
Heisman.
A lot of people are even saying, behind Caleb Williams, he's the next best guy out there. So, we'll be fun to see. We'll be fun to watch. Again, just talking about ACC. I haven't really looked at much when it comes to action, but it's like we're both itching for that 11 a.m. your time, 12 p.m. noon slot my time, those ACC matchups. So there'll be some good primetime ones too for sure. But I think those two teams, they got to be the most intriguing teams in that.
Oh yeah, it's literally Clemson, Florida State, and everybody else.
The
rest of the division, it's Duke, Miami. Maybe the U gets back. You got Pitt, which Pitt, I mean, they get in there with Narduzzi every year, but are they going to be competitive? Who knows? NC State loses the quarterback. Louisville's got Brom in there with Jack Plummer. Wake Forest, Syracuse. I mean, there's just not a lot of boring football. As much as people shit on the Big Ten, the ACC can be just as boring, and they can probably be more boring because they don't play smash mouth. They play ugly football. So that's kind of my take on the ACC. Let's touch Pac-12 real quick as we're going to wrap this thing up here in a few. 22 in a nutshell. We talk USC. They're back in a real way. Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams. Washington did contest really well, went undefeated at home, finished the season second in the final standings. Oregon and Utah fell off late. Both teams had issues to their starting quarterbacks. Oregon State, kind of the surprise of the conference, wins 10 games, finishing on a 4-game win streak. UCLA, they are kind of the cutoff. The thing with Pac-12 that people got to remember, this is the conference of parity. At the top, you got like 5 teams that are within a game to a game and a half of each other. And then you got the rest. And it's really ugly. And the reason for that, and the reason that everybody's talking about the Pac-12 is the future of the Pac-12, Joey. Our Big Ten is getting USC and UCLA next year. I want to know, are you excited for Big Ten moving to LA? I mean, it's going to be weird, but it's 2 great teams to play every year.
Right. And it's just 2 teams. It's not a total consolidation, anything like that. So yeah, there might be 1 or 2 games. I know you like Wisconsin. You might have to watch Wisconsin play at UCLA in front of like 50 fans, once a season. But
well, that's the thing too, is people forget Big Ten schools travel. Like you're
very well
travels.
Yeah.
Wisconsin travels. Like
definitely.
They've got Oregon and Washington. People are going to want to go to Oregon. People are going to want to go to Washington. They've never been to those schools. They want to go to Los Angeles. Well, Wisconsin people may not want to go to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I just said 2 teams. I forgot about the whole Washington.
To piggyback off that, Oregon and Washington, the latest 2 to get announced, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, all headed to the Big 12. I mean, the Pac-12's dead. The Pac-12 is dead. So let's just touch on them briefly. Obviously, it's Ohio State. USC at the top, plus 200 to win the whole thing, or not the whole thing, the Pac-12 itself. Caleb Williams show will be fun. Defense allowed 30 points per game, so they got to clean that up. Caleb Williams is the Heisman favorite right now. It is going to be interesting. They got Dorian Singer, who they brought in, who was the number 2 receiver in the Pac-12, transferred within conference, which there was a little bit of that going on this year, which is really tough.
Right.
Look at the rest of the teams at the top of the Pac-12. Oregon's got a 9.5 win team total. They're plus 320. I'm not a huge fan of Bo Nix. I don't know if you're a big fan of his at all. One guy I do think is cool, if you want to get kind of funky with it, Michael Penix Jr.
I'm looking at it right now, plus 1260.
Yes, brother.
He's a little former Big Ten guy,
former Big Ten man.
I think
Indiana Hoosier.
I'm glad you brought that up because I definitely wanted to bring that up as well. But it's funny, this shouldn't be considered at all. But just thinking of a Washington player winning the Heisman doesn't feel right, With all due respect to Washington, it's been a great program for a while, but it's just that was the first thing that popped up in my head.
Got invited. I think Jake Locker got invited one year, and that's the only thing.
He might have, yeah. He probably did. He was really good from what I remember. But, that's just a stupid little point I wanted to make. But he's been around a while, too. So he's exciting to see what he does. They've always been a fun team to watch, I feel like, too. So
Oh yeah, a Pac-12 after dark, and just looking at some things for them. This is a group that averaged 40 points or almost 40 points per game, and they're the second best in the country, 516 yards per game. He gets both of his 1,000-yard receivers back. I mean, this is a team. If you want to get kind of an outside looking in group, Washington is that team. However, if you're betting the team total, it's 9.5. This is the stretch that they get. November could see them undefeated, except they head into a stretch of Oregon State, USC, and Utah. Could be really interesting to see how they actually finish off down the stretch. But I'm happy that you also were thinking Phoenix on that one because I was always
he's worthy of the consideration, especially for when looking at Heisman odds and whatever. So pretty cool.
I'll always forget, and I don't know if you can remember it at all. He played Ohio State really tough when he played them at Indiana. That was a noon game. Shout out Big Ten. And I've always thought really highly of the guy. Utah, Cameron Rising's back. Not a whole lot to go through there. I don't think they're going to be quite as good. Lose Dalton Kincaid. Oregon State, they get DJ Uiagalelei. However, he may not start. Ben Gulbranson was 7-1 as a starter last year. You bring in DJ. If DJ sits, that'd be insane. But it may happen. It may not. Other than that, in the Pac-12, UCLA is right up there, but it just falls off. Washington State, Cal, Arizona. Colorado, we got to talk Colorado. Prime. The boys are plus 15,000 to win the Pac-12, and their over-under is 3.5 at plus money. There's no love for Prime in Colorado this year. I might take over 3.5. That's not very many wins.
No, it's definitely not.
It's just not that many. It's just not many wins, and you don't need them to be incredible. You need them to win. Because here, hold on, let me pull up Colorado's schedule. Let's just run through it just to entertain the idea.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of attention, man. So Colorado. It'll be cool when we have Ben back on. We'll talk to him more about it.
Oh, true. Yeah. Actually, let's save that for Ben. He is
So and as we're wrapping up, we're gonna have some fun people on the next few weeks. We'll have Ben on again, hopefully. We'll remember to press record that time. Gino, a few other guys. We'll talk to them about like placing 10 different small bets on 10 different futures. So see what they think.
Positive EV, you tell me. But before we go, one last thing. Let's talk for 2-3 minutes here. Hard Knocks reviewed last night or 2 nights ago for us. I went through a lot of emotions. I think the one thing I gotta say is Rodgers looks really fucking happy, and
he looks
depressing.
So happy since the whole thing went down. He looks so happy, so like rejuvenated and re-energized. So I know it pains you, but for me, it's really exciting to see it all happening. Close by. So it'll be. This is the most hype that's been around them in so long. So, and I thought there was a decent amount of hype around them going into last season too. And I enjoyed watching them last season.
They've kind of always said that the Jets are the team that it feels like, obviously you're a Giants fan. You guys have had your successes. The Jets have always been like our whole lives. They've gotten kind of close. They just can't quite push it. They didn't really have the quarterback. Now, theoretically, you do. But yeah, it was. I thought a really good episode of Hard Knocks. It was cool to see the narrator get out.
Oh yeah, that was very cool. I thought like Joe Namath or someone was gonna walk out of the helicopter and leave Schreiber, so that was pretty funny.
Started hoping Susie Colbert.
Yeah, right. Joe Namath did that, but it's with the Jets. They've just had so many quarterbacks throughout the years where they give a guy like 2-3 years. Sanchez was really exciting early on and led them almost to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. And then I think 2 years later, he wasn't even on the team, and then he bounced around the league. And then it went Sanchez. Then I think Geno Smith. Then they tried Hackenberg and Bryce Petty. And then
Bryce Petty
or Darnold. They had Fitzpatrick for a year. There's
Wait,
been no stability there.
Christian
So
Hackenberg, right? Did you mention Christian Hackenberg?
Christian Hackenberg, I think, was like a second or a third round pick for them.
He was hitting reporters in practice with like well overthrown balls, I guess.
I don't think he didn't pan out.
He didn't. Safe to say, didn't pan out. But last thing before we go, Joey, we've won our bet. There's
officially we did. I have
20 left.
Well,
we're safe by quite a bit. We've won our bet.
You can't make that mistake. There's 1:26 left.
But minute 15, clock's running. I think Houston's good to sit on it. But
we won our bet.
We won our bet. That's the boys going, and that's 2-0 now in football season for you boys. So
awesome. we got to publicize this some more, maybe, or maybe we shouldn't do that.
Absolutely. So that's going to be it for us. Anything before we head out, Joey? Anything you want to get off your chest?
No, my room's getting really dark here, so I'm gonna have to work on my lighting. But we have some cool guests coming on in the next few weeks. They'll be talking about their products, their platforms, maybe their music, hint, hint. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But a lot more to talk about. Everything's heating up. We're entering that mid-August time frame. I've been looking at odds the past hour or so, however long we've been talking. So now my mind's just going in a million different directions. But exciting stuff, man. Yeah. We'll talk futures some more. We'll talk conferences, divisions for both college and NFL some more. But it's heating up, man.
It's exciting to say the least, but appreciate everybody for listening. Look at that. We kept it under an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Proud of us. We'll try to keep that consistent. We know the first episode went a little long, but hey, that's okay. Just some boys talking shop.
Plenty to talk about.
But yeah, thanks again. We will talk to you guys next week. Joey, appreciate you as always.
Of course, man. Yes, sir. We will be back
Thursday next week. Yeah, that's the other thing.
Thursday
next week. I'm 90% sure unless something changes. I'm not too worried about our schedule during the preseason. We'll get it hammered out for regular season. So
definitely.
All right, for Joey and Jake, here we go. Thank you very much for listening. This is Lock Talk.
Lock Talk out.
Or it's